Oh, summer's here and it's time to relax.
Hold on, wait. Summer's here, but we've got work to do. Hi, we're Brandon and Megan Giggling, and we help people begin their personal growth journeys.
This summer, we're bringing you the Summer Growth Series, 2 months of quick episodes packed with practical steps and advice you can use right now to jumpstart your growth journey.
Already into personal development? Don't worry, there's plenty of good tips here for you too.
You ready?
This is the Fools in Love podcast. Welcome to week 3 of the Summer Growth Series.
Y'all, so excited to be back. If you haven't been following along, make sure you go back and check out our previous episodes in this series. We talked about creating habits and then learning to love yourself. 2 powerful episodes, so you won't want to miss it.
Today, we're going to talk about something that is very hard for me to do, that I have done a lot of work on over the years, and that I am still continuing to work on at this very moment. That's right. It's becoming a better listener.
Oh boy, it's always challenging in our selfish, self-centric world, and I'm just going to say it. I'm selfish, you're selfish, we're all selfish. Come on, people, let's be real here. But learning to be a good listener is all part of really expanding yourself and just becoming a better person, a better individual. And throughout this growth journey, if you don't know how to listen to other people, it's going to be really challenging because you're going to hit a wall with your own knowledge, with your own information and how you see the world. And so if you're not willing to open your ears and listen to anyone else, you're really going to prevent yourself from moving forward and you're going to hit a plateau.
Yeah, learning to become a better listener is just so important for every part of your life. It's important for your relationships. It's important for your career. It's important for your chosen path of life. Like, it just matters. It just matters because people need you to listen. You need to listen to others. I can't stress it enough. And yet, somehow here I am, needing to take my own advice many, many times because it's very challenging. I think that it's just really hard to master because of all like the busyness in our lives, the distractions in our lives, and obviously, as Brandon was saying, like the selfishness we all face. But for me personally, I struggle to listen most when I'm already involved in something else. Like, I don't want to stop what I'm doing, and that's where I have that selfish nature pop in. It's like, what I'm doing is super, super important, so I can't really stop and listen. But I think there are ways that we can talk about today where we can kind of figure out how to deal with those situations and really make it something where we are building community and building relationships as using listening rather than tearing other people apart and choosing ourselves over others all the time.
Right. I think I struggle with it too. I mean, you're going to be honest and vulnerable. I'll be honest and vulnerable. I struggle with it too. When I'm working on something, when I'm doing something in my mind that I think is the most important thing, then I think everyone else isn't as important. Let's be real. I mean, if I think that my thing, just by the nature of it, is more important than what you have to say, then clearly I think that I'm better, smarter, or I just know better for me than you do. And even if that's the case or not, like it's really a matter of being aware. Like, you have to figure out an awareness for this, because if you have no ability to become aware that this is in front of you and this is happening, and you have no one to, maybe you don't listen to someone so much that they're not even going to call you on it anymore, that's going to be a big problem for you.
Mm-hmm. I think one of the biggest things we've had to learn, like especially in relating to each other, but even in the outside of our marriage world, like with other people and everything, is just learning to be adaptable. Like learning to understand when there might be times where you're going to have to put down what you're working on. You're going to have to put your own thoughts and needs aside for a second and hear what somebody else is saying. And I think that although it's a super hard skill to learn, is one of the best things you can do to become a better listener, because I think you just have to be able to know when somebody else needs you more than you need to continue what you're doing.
Right. And the challenge too is it's not necessarily that what other people need at that moment is the most important thing going on, because that's tough too. I mean, look, y'all, we got 2 kids. The things that they need in the moment in time, like they'll scream up the stairs, they need Cheez-Its or they're out of a snack. That certainly is not the most important thing that I need to be doing at the moment. We could be recording this episode right now and our daughter could yell that she needs a treat. That might not be the most important thing, but also the adaptability thing is just by nature exactly what it means. Like, I have to be open and willing to see to someone else's needs before my own sometimes. I'm not saying all the time, because That's the struggle on the other side. Like if people are constantly pulling your attention and wanting you to listen to them, but they're not willing to listen to you and it's not reciprocated, that is a challenge too. But we're really saying you have to be one, more open and available to that actually happening, and then adapt in real time if that needs to happen.
Definitely. And there are some times, like we found many times, where it's just not possible to like have a certain conversation that really needs to be listened to, that really needs to be had at that moment. And one of the best things that we've ever done is just coming up with a time that will work for both people involved when now is not the time. So if there's a reason that like if Brandon really needs me to listen to him and I'm just not in a place where I'm mentally ready for that, I'm mentally going to be able to handle that, then what we'll do is we'll be like, okay, I honestly, I want to hear this. I want to be able to have my best listening on, but right now I'm deep in the weeds of whatever I'm doing. Can we do this at blank? And we'll give each other times too. Like we'll be like, hey, do you want to meet at 2:00 or whatever, just to be able to have something real that's going to happen and not just like a fake push out of like I don't really care what you're saying. Let's talk about this later, and later never comes.
The thing with that is all of us, y'all, just want to be heard. So in those moments where we've figured that out for ourselves, I just know for me, as the person normally coming to you in those moments, that you saying, hey, this isn't the right time, I do want to hear it. Like you're hearing what I'm saying, you're acknowledging what I'm saying, you're acknowledging a need for it to be talked about, and then you're taking the proactive step to plan a time to talk about it. That's enough for me. Even if in that moment I was so like riled up and worked up and felt like I had to talk about it and had to get it out, the fact that you took all of those steps that I just defined make me walk away feeling good about it, feeling good about the interaction, rather than if I came over to you and said, Meg, I really need to talk about this. And you're like, I'm busy. Like, can't you see that I'm working on this right now? You're going to have to come back later. And then like Megan said, you learn to know that later might never come. How do you think then I would walk away from that conversation? And that's what used to happen. Mm-hmm. I'd walk away with a lot of resentment, y'all. I'd walk away feeling very negative and not wanting to open up to you in the slightest if that happened. And it went both ways. I mean, right. I'm using you as an example, but I've certainly done this as well. And I'm sure you have people that have done this as well. But the point is recognizing that the issue does need to be talked about, saying it can't happen then, and planning a time is just such a great strategy to use. And honestly, we've found that it's more meaningful to us, and we would imagine to most people, that rather than one of us giving each other 5 minutes of half attention, that we'd rather give each other the full attention for like an hour or however long we need, whether that's 10 minutes or it's 2 hours. The full attention there is more meaningful than the half crap that we're going to give each other in some of those moments where adaptability is just not possible. Right. It's like, yeah, go ahead and talk right now. I'm just going to continue looking at my phone or this computer and clicking on this keyboard, but I'm listening. And I'm going to give you lots of which is my pet peeve in life, y'all. Like, it's like, I'm listening, and they're clearly not listening. And so, yeah, that's a big thing. Now, I'm going to hit y'all with a very, very, probably very unpopular one, but it's something that I see a lot, and it's something that we've struggled with as well, but it's wanting to fix what the person's telling you. So whether it's a problem, a situation, or where they want to eat for dinner, we all as people want to be the fixer. We want to be like, well, if you just listen to what I said, then you would be exactly where you want to be, and you wouldn't have this problem, or you wouldn't have eaten that bad food, or you wouldn't have had that bad experience had you just listened to me. And we almost try to coach each other. Like, I try to be there for Meg in a way that, well, if she would have just listened to me, y'all, she would have this figured out. And so, frankly, I'm not even going to waste my breath next time, because why doesn't she just listen to me? When in reality, many times when people come to you with a problem or come to you to talk, they just want someone to listen. Right. Like, what are we talking about today? Becoming a better listener, right? Not becoming a better talker. We all know how to talk and coach and give our best advice, but the listening part is the challenge here. Right. Listening, frankly, is underrated. Talking is very overrated. Listening is an amazing skill. They should teach a listening class in college. Like, how do you listen? Because we're so focused on what we can do and how we can tell you and what advice I can give you, that when you're talking to me, I'm half listening, but I'm more coming up with my response to you of exactly the steps that you need to take to get on the other side.
Or worse, when you're arguing and then you're like, yeah, listening, sure. Except for really you're just locking and loading for what your snarky response is next. So like it happens when you're totally calm and cool and you're just trying to give each other loving advice, and then it really amplifies, at least for us it does. It really amplifies that the listening comes less and less and less, and the gearing up to talk becomes more as you're a little bit snippy and a little bit irritated with each other and in a tiff.
Right. And I'm gonna tell you, we literally have done this. We speak these words, and I'm gonna tell you an inside look at our relationship. This is what we do. When we're telling each other a problem, when we're going on about something that's happening, it doesn't even need to be a problem, just something in life that we're just speaking out to the other person, we legitimately will stop before we respond and say, do you want my advice, or do you just want me to listen right now? And I'm telling you, it's changed our whole relationship, because what typically would happen is we would just give the response of what we wanted. And we're guilty of this with other people too, y'all. And in reality, all that person wanted was for you to listen. And sometimes it is, hey, yeah, I want some advice. But a lot of times you just want someone to vent to, want someone to speak to, want someone to hear you, even if they can't fix it. Like, you're not necessarily looking for that person to fix it. So when you do that, and you might try this with your partner, with your friend, with a family member, like, hey, do you just want me to listen, or did you actually want my advice? And again, it's all comes in the tone too. Like, it's not snark. Well, do you want me to listen or advice? No, it's,
this
hey,
is a genuine
clearly,
question.
genuinely, do you want that? And it really frees up a lot of the problems that we had and kind of cancels them out completely.
Yeah. And when we started doing this, it was great. And then there were times also when we were like, you know what? Like, even we didn't know what we wanted, which is really interesting, because you would think that, like, if somebody's like, yeah, what do you need from me right now? You'd be able to totally be like, well, this is what I want. Clearly I want advice, or clearly I want you to listen. But there are times right now even where we're like, you know what? I actually don't know what I need. Can I get back to you on what I like? For now, listen, I might come back to you with this needing some advice. Like, sometimes you might not know, and that's okay too, to just speak like, I'm going to tell you about this right now. I just want you to be listening. But there might come a point when I need to come back to you with this for some advice and how you might handle this.
Right. And you know how you show someone, honestly, that you're a really good listener? You respond with intention. You respond with questions to gain clarity. Not the fact that you want to know, because a lot of times if someone's telling you something, it's almost like this like greedy feeling, and you're like, oh, I just want to know. I want to know this story. So I'm asking these questions not to help you, but for me to just get in more information. But when you ask questions to gain clarity with where they're coming from, it almost allows the person, it certainly allows the other person to know that you're paying attention. But sometimes it can also help them to realize what they actually need in that moment, like you were just talking about. If you ask probing questions, it's more like, oh, okay, yeah, maybe this is what I need. Because a lot of times we get into that panic mode, or that area in our head where it's really clouded. And sometimes you just need someone to speak and ask some specific questions for you yourself to gain clarity. But then I certainly know by you asking those probing questions that you're listening to what I'm saying.
Absolutely. And there's obviously there has to be some trust there, because you're not trying to ask gossipy questions, or you're not trying to ask questions that would, overstep your boundaries as to whatever that relationship is. But there's definitely, like, especially when we're talking about our relationship specifically, or if you're married or in a committed relationship, then there's a lot of trust already built in. So that might be a really good place to practice that, where you can ask those kind of questions without it being like weird, like you're just trying to get more info from the other person. Because really, when you're building this skill, you need to be able to communicate that you really do care, that you really are interested, and testing that skill and practicing that skill in a safe environment is a really good place to start.
Right. I love it. Scott Miller, who we recently had on the podcast, he has this strategy. He's like, you know how to be a really good listener? He's like, this is what I do. I take my top lip and I press it to my bottom lip, right? I close my mouth and I look at the person, and he literally counts in his head to like 7 or 10 or whatever. And before he responds, a lot of times what we do in these conversations is someone's talking, and then as soon as they're done, we just fire right back at them. But they might not even have been done. They might be processing it in real time, and they don't really know that there's more to be said. Or maybe they do have more to be said, but we're so busy worried about what we're going to say and how we can help them that we're interrupting them. But by counting that time in your head and giving that time, you give each other the eye contact. Like, okay, I see that you're done, and now I'm going to take that in and I'm going to respond, rather than it being interrupting them and showing them that you were just trying to get out what you had in your mind before they even finish.
Or something that we've definitely been guilty of in the past is rushing to give a personal like story of experience of like, yes, I similarly went through this. Like when that person doesn't want to hear about your similar experience, there are times and places where that's an important tool to use. But when they're just wanting to speak to you, they don't necessarily want to hear about the struggle that you went through 3 years ago. So be really mindful of like when the appropriate time to share your past experiences is.
Right. And a lot of times we're guilty of just immediately popping in questions. Pop, 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 pop. Let me just ask all these additional questions for the things that I want to know that you don't necessarily even want to tell me, or you're not necessarily even trying to open up about. But my sheer curiosity as another human wants to know. So it's not really serving you. And that's how you're a good listener. I'm doing something to show you that I am listening to you and that I care about you, not for me to give you all of my advice and what I need and what I need to give you. And that's the thing that a lot of us need to think about, and maybe we need to reflect on a little bit more on this journey of becoming a better listener.
If you guys like this episode, please be sure to shout it out on social media. Also, if you could leave us an Apple Podcast review, we'd love you forever.
Yep. And just make sure you subscribe to the episodes so you don't miss them. Go back and check out those previous episodes in the series, and we can't wait to see y'all next week. Love y'all.